former President Thabo Mbeki,
President Ramaphosa.
can you hear me at all?
Well, up to you. You are muted.
On my side, I'm not muted.
You are muted, President.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Thank you, National Chairperson, Deputy President David Mabuza, former President Thabo Mbeki, and former President Jacob Zuma, and members of the National Executive Committee and officials. We have now come to the end of what I would call a very important meeting of our movement. Although we had to deal with very difficult issues, this meeting has reaffirmed our ability as the African National Congress leadership to deal with and address very difficult issues and still emerge with a unity of purpose and still emerge sharing a commitment to process our renewal and the rebuilding of the ANC. As we noted at the opening of the beginning of our meeting, this NEC meeting coincided as it started with the 25th anniversary of the adoption of our democratic constitution by the Constitutional Assembly. The meeting recalled that the values as well as the objectives enshrined in the Constitution find their genesis and their expression in seminal documents of our movement and of our country, the African Claims, the Freedom Charter, and other seminal texts of our movement. The ANC therefore has a historical responsibility to respect as well as to uphold and advance our country's constitution. Members of the ANC are expected to live according to the values of social justice, respect for humanity, equality, selfless service, and the adherence to the rule of law. The NEC reaffirmed the ANC's commitment to advance the objectives of the Constitution of our country, to build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. The National Executive Committee therefore reiterated the foremost priorities of our organization for 2021. Firstly, to act together, working with all South Africans to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic. And secondly, to place our economy on a path of renewal and recovery. Thirdly, to forge ahead with the fundamental renewal of the African National Congress in line with its core mandate and values. Fourthly, to strengthen development and participatory local government and achieve a decisive win in the upcoming local government elections. And fifthly, to build a better Africa and a better world. With regard to defeating COVID-19, the NEC applauded the continued dedication by those who are on the front line in the fight against COVID-19. It commended South Africans for their continued adherence to prevention measures and in taking responsibility for their own health as well as the health of others. The meeting noted worrying signs of escalating infections in some areas in our country, and the need for society to remain vigilant to prevent a devastating third wave of infections. The meeting welcomed the report on the second phase of the Alliance's COVID-19 campaign. This campaign encourages adherence to public health protocols, especially wearing of masks, social distancing, hand hygiene, and we call on all adults in our country to participate in the mass vaccination campaign that is now underway. We reaffirmed positions adopted at previous meetings and by the Alliance that South Africa needs to seek vaccines and treatment from all available sources, including our BRICS partner countries such as Russia and China, who have already developed a number of vaccines, and that this should be undertaken in conformity with our country's laws and regulations, and that the contracts for acquiring these vaccines should also be speeded up. We've welcomed the initiative by South Africa and India to fight for a TRIPS waiver at the World Trade Organization so that there is equitable access to COVID vaccines. This proposal is now supported by the World Health Organization, the African Union, and more than 100 countries around the world, including the United States. We will continue engaging other countries that are still reluctant to offer their support to a vaccine patents waiver. We will also continue to promote a pan-African approach to fighting the pandemic, including access to the continent, to sufficient vaccines and capacity to produce its own medical equipment in the form of diagnostics, therapeutics, as well as vaccines. The NEC also pledged its support to two of our BRIC partner countries, India and Brazil, who are going through a heightened spate of infections, and supported our government in the efforts to support initially India as well as Brazil, which will be happening soon, as they battle this vaccine. With regard to accelerating transformation and building a capable state, the NEC spent a considerable amount of time discussing this matter. It discussed the issue of land reform and redistribution, and as part of its commitment to tackle the historical injustice of land dispossession, the NEC had a discussion on the process of amending Section 25 of our Constitution to explicitly make provision for the expropriation of land without compensation. This is informed by the direction of our National Conference in 2017, our 54th National Conference, that land reform must take place in a manner in which it will advance the livelihoods and the interests of our people, and that it should, in the end, strengthen the agricultural sector, improve economic growth, and significantly tackle inequality, poverty, and unemployment. The NEC welcomed the progress that has been made in the parliamentary process and urged government to bolster resources and capacity to effect land reform and restitution at a faster pace. The NEC welcomed the report of the task team that has been appointed to deal with this matter, bolstering the efforts of our colleagues and comrades who are in Parliament, task team that is headed by Matthew Posa, a former NEC member. The NEC also discussed local government and affirmed that local government remains a key sphere of government, and in the context of the district development model, we must continue to strengthen the capacity of local government to meet its obligations to our communities, to deliver basic services, to ensure popular participation in decision-making, and to drive local economic development. This should also enable the empowerment of institutions such as cooperatives, as well as small and medium enterprises, but should also lead to the empowerment of women and the youth, and should also result in the development of skills. Given the critical role of this sphere, the ANC has revised and adopted guidelines for the selection of candidates, which allows for the best candidates to emerge with the support of the local community. We have stressed that all ANC members and structures must ensure that we become deliberate in selecting candidates with the necessary capacities, the necessary skills, and the necessary experience, so as to ensure that we have the best people deployed in our local government who will work to advance the interests of our people. These candidates must be the embodiment of hard work, of service to the people, and they must be people of ethical conduct. This NEC has stressed the importance of the principles of continuity, of gender equality, and the representation of young people in our local government structures. The NEC took considerable time discussing the unity, the renewal, as well as the state of the African National Congress. It discussed in detail the state of cohesion and unity within our movement. It noted with deep concern the continued factional divisions and divisive public pronouncements and spats, which give the impression of an organization that is in crisis. Fundamental to these challenges is the critical process of implementing the mandate of the 54th National Conference with regard to building unity on principle and unity in action, combined with the task of ensuring organizational as well as societal renewal. At the same time, the meeting recognized that the work of the organization has been going on despite all these spats and differences at leadership level. And contrary to impressions created in some public discourse, the work of the organization is continuing, testifying to the fact that the ANC lives and the ANC leads. Since the last NEC meeting, well over 2,000 branch general meetings have been held, and regional conferences have also started, and provincial conferences will also be taking place. Local structures and regions are also continuing the campaigns against COVID-19, as well as other organizational programs, and continue to campaign for by-elections. And in some ways, the ability of the ANC to continue to win the many by-elections is because of the structures of the ANC, the branches of the ANC that remain robust, that remain alive, even during the COVID period. As this leadership, we have recommitted ourselves to the mandate of the 54th National Conference to restore the unity, the renewal, and integrity of the African National Congress, despite the very difficult and complex challenges of the current period. In the spirit of criticism and self-criticism, we reflected on the way we work as an organization, as leaders in the organization, and on our conduct as NEC members. We agreed to adhere to organizational protocols as well as practices including collective leadership, teamwork, the promotion of unity and renewal, and strict adherence to the ANC's communications protocol. We have agreed to hold a retreat as soon as conditions permit to address varying perspectives amongst leadership and develop a practical action plan to strengthen the process of unity and renewal. Members of the NEC have expressed concern about a concerted and a well-orchestrated as well as a well-resourced campaign to sow division and confusion in the ranks of the ANC, with the ultimate aim to destroy the movement as an instrument of progressive transformation and change. It noted that this campaign is actively aided by a few individuals from within the National Executive Committee itself through leaks, deviant public pronouncements, protests, and misinformation on social media, aimed at distorting the decisions of the National Executive Committee. The NEC agreed to take urgent steps to investigate the leaks from the NEC and any organized campaign to subvert the movement and take appropriate action. The NEC discussed the implementation of step-aside guidelines and procedures. During this meeting, we received a report from the National Working Committee on the implementation of the resolution that all ANC members indicted for corruption and other serious crimes should step aside or be temporarily suspended pending the finalization of their cases. The report indicated that, in line with the decisions of the NEC meeting of the 26th to the 29th of March 2021, a number of ANC members had stepped aside and others had been served with notices of suspension. And these include our Secretary General, Ace Magashule, and NEC member Bongani Bongo. This meeting had confirmed the terms and conditions for elected office bearers and public representatives who have stepped aside or temporarily been suspended. These include that during the step-aside period, such individuals may not: 1, carry out the duties and the responsibility of their office. Secondly, they may not represent the organization publicly or in any other forum. Thirdly, they may not make public pronouncements on matters related to the organizations. And fourthly, they may not engage in the mobilization of ANC structures or any other organization or individuals. During the step-aside period, a public representative may not occupy any executive office or other position of responsibility in the legislature to which they belong. During the step-aside period, they will be entitled to remuneration and other benefits as per labor relationship. The decision to step aside must be reviewed by the relevant structure of the organization every 6 months. The NEC confirmed that in the light of the temporary suspension of the Secretary General, Deputy Secretary General Jesse Duarte will, in accordance with the ANC's constitution, carry out the functions entrusted to the Secretary General by the National Conference, the National General Council, the NEC, and the NWC. Members have condemned the unwarranted attacks on the Deputy Secretary General, as well as on ANC staff members at Luthuli House who have been subjected to attacks and insults for carrying out the decisions of the NEC, the NWC, and the officials. These attacks have taken the form of threats, of insults, unfounded allegations, and misinformation. We've also noted with great concern death threats made against an ANC NEC coordinator, Comrade Andries Nel, and agreed that this should be reported to the relevant authorities. The NEC reaffirms its full confidence in our Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, and supports her in carrying out her duties as per the ANC Constitution. The NEC also discussed the so-called letter of suspension written by the Secretary General to the President, for which the Secretary General had no authority or mandate from any structure of the movement. The NEC agreed that such conduct was completely unacceptable and a flagrant violation of the rules, the norms, and the values of the African National Congress. The NEC furthermore instructed the officials to advise the Secretary General to apologize publicly to ANC structures and members within a set time frame. If he fails to do so, the ANC will institute disciplinary procedures in accordance with the ANC Constitution. The NEC also took time to discuss the Commission of Inquiry into State Capture. The meeting also discussed the ANC's submission to the Commission. The ANC reaffirms its support for the work of the Commission and its role in determining the nature and the extent of state capture and of holding those responsible to account. While the ANC has come under great scrutiny at the Commission on State Capture, we believe that this is a necessary part of the national effort to end state capture in all its forms and ensure that it can never happen again. On the matter of our branch general meetings and regional meetings, as well as regional and provincial conferences, the NEC said we must appreciate the work by ANC structures to convene branch biennial general meetings, or BBGMs as we call them, where new branch leadership is elected. Over 2,000 of these meetings have been held, and the process is ongoing. This is the first time that the majority of BBGMs are held on the basis of the new membership system. While there have been some technical glitches, as often happens with new systems, the system has helped to protect the integrity of the movement's key organizational processes. The NEC also discussed local government elections campaign. We should welcome the tireless work being done by our local government election teams at all levels on the by-elections, our volunteers, our various organizers and team members with regard to the preparation for the forthcoming election campaign. While we must welcome the advances in some by-elections where the ANC won wards from the opposition, we must also recognize that there were areas where the ANC lost ground. We know that citizens and communities expect decisive action to renew the organization as well as to critically address the service delivery challenges afflicting our communities. The ANC will continue to correct these weaknesses and take measures to prevent the current failures from carrying over into the future. This relates both to policy content, implementation mechanisms, and the selection of appropriate community leaders and activists as candidates on the ANC's list. We also discussed the National General Council, the NGC. The NEC noted the countrywide discussions that are taking place on the NGC discussion documents and urged that these be consolidated at branch levels so that the contributions can be processed for submission to national structures. The NEC mandated the Secretary General's office to prepare a comprehensive report to the NEC with proposals regarding the nature, the form, and the timing of the NGC. This must take into account the limitations imposed by COVID-19 pandemic, the local government elections, and the need to hold a national policy conference before the next national conference, which we will hold in December in 2022. We also discussed our various matters in the Free State in light of the Ramaphosa versus ANC judgment. We have agreed that priority must be given to pursuing a political solution that will build a united and vibrant ANC in the Free State. We need to intensify the efforts being led by Comrade Kgalema Motlanthe to achieve a political solution in the Free State. To avoid a political vacuum in the province, we have therefore mandated the NWC to establish an inclusive interim structure to take the province to an elective conference in due course. The NEC also discussed Integrity Commission reports. The NEC adopted a number of reports from the Integrity Commission and recommendations as presented, and further noted where appeals have been lodged. The NEC urged NWC and officials to ensure speedy processing of the various appeals that have been lodged. On the ANC Youth League National Youth Task Team, the NEC welcomed the report that the newly appointed National Youth Task Team has started its work towards building a vibrant ANC Youth League that champions the interests of young people and as a preparatory school for new cadres of the African National Congress. It further noted processes to strengthen the Progressive Youth Alliance in dealing with matters affecting young people, including financing of higher education. The NEC noted work in progress to ensure that the National Youth Task Team members meet the age requirements of the ANC Youth League Constitution, which is that those who participate in that structure should be below 35 years of age. All NEC members and other leaders were urged to support a vibrant and active youth league. With regard to a task team on the violence that raged in Mpumalanga, the NEC noted and adopted a report of the National Dispute Resolution Committee led by the Deputy Secretary General into the violence at BBGMs that broke out in the Enhlazeni region in Mpumalanga, as well as in the Nkomazi sub-region wards 4 and 32. The NEC noted the progress made by the task team, led by Comrade Zweli Mkhize, to further look into these and previous incidents of violence. It authorized the NEC deployees to the province to refer matters of serious misconduct to the National Disciplinary Committee and to ensure cooperation with law enforcement agencies with regard and respect to criminal matters. The NEC agreed that, except for the Nkomazi sub-region, branches should resume BBGMs and BGMs in May 2021 so as to do away with parallel structures and branches. On the Northwest, the NEC expressed concern regarding the ongoing instability in the Northwest and the impact that this is having on our organization with regard to its governance as well as service delivery. Governance as in government and service delivery as in the local government sphere. It reiterated the decision of the NEC meeting of the 26th to the 29th of March 2021 that the Interim Provincial Committee must continue to discharge the mandate given to it by the NEC in accordance with the powers that it has in terms of the ANC Constitution. We also took time to discuss the unity of MK veterans. As we approach the 60th anniversary of the founding of the People's Army Umkhonto weSizwe, we are deeply concerned at the slow progress in convening a unified conference of its veterans. We have agreed to establish an inclusive committee to start preparations for an appropriate celebration of the 60th anniversary of Umkhonto weSizwe in December of 2021. We support the Deputy President and the Deputy Secretary General in the processes they lead to unite former MK combatants and call on the MK Military Veterans Association and MK Council to cooperate. We also discussed a very important matter of patriarchy and misogyny. The ANC Women's League has raised the existence of gender-based discrimination and misogyny in our structures on several occasions. We need to give further consideration to this matter so we ensure all female comrades in our ranks enjoy full participation in organizational life of the ANC. And we support the rights of the LGBTQI+ community or persons, and we reiterate our complete support for their rights and condemn the apparent rise of incidents of hate crimes against this community. No one has the right to discriminate against or attack anyone based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. The NEC welcomed the report on the Alliance Political Council held since the last NEC meeting. It noted work in progress on the matter of non-trading holidays by the Department of Home Affairs and urged officials to continue engagement with the Alliance on the issue of the public sector wage negotiations. With regard to building a better Africa and a better world, we discussed Mozambique. The NEC supports the initiatives by SADC to assist Mozambique to resolve the conflict in the province of Cabo Delgado and further encourage party-to-party engagement between the ANC and Frelimo. We also took time to discuss matters in the northern part, in the northern hemisphere, particularly in Ireland. Discussed the relationship between Sinn Féin and the ANC and welcomed the process to strengthen the bonds between the ANC and Sinn Féin and further pledge to deepen communication, the sharing and exchanging of expertise on various matters. We also discussed Cuba. NEC resolutely reiterates its solidarity with Cuba and reaffirms its demand for an immediate end to the blockade and the wanton aggression against Cuba. The NEC calls for further strengthening of bilateral relations between our two countries, that is Cuba and South Africa. On Palestine, the NEC reaffirms our support for the people of Palestine in their struggle for freedom and self-determination. And we repeat our condemnation in the strongest possible terms of the unlawful evictions of Palestinians from their homes in Sheikh al-Jarrah and the brutal attacks on Palestinian protesters at Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Dome of the Rock. We reiterate that the expansion of settlements by Israel has already been condemned by the United Nations and urge the international community to stop Israel from expanding its illegal occupation of Palestinian lands and property. The NEC reaffirms its commitment to strengthen and intensify South Africa's support for the Sahrawi people in their quest for self-determination. We call on the progressive movement within the continent and the international community to accelerate the efforts in this regard. It is apparent from all the reports we received in this meeting that the work of the African National Congress is proceeding despite our internal and external challenges. We need to be more proactive in communicating these aspects of ANC life to counteract this false impression of an ANC that is said to be on the verge of collapse. The work that continues in the African National Congress throughout the country on a wall-to-wall basis through the structures of the ANC at branch level, at zonal level, at regional level, and at provincial level, and national level through its various departments, is clear proof that the ANC lives. This is not a dying organization, it's a living organization. And it continues to lead. We must remember that the trust and support of the South African people should never be taken for granted. For as long as we are divided as a leadership, for as long as we fail to act against corruption, and unless we put the needs of our people first, we will struggle to restore the credibility of the ANC. The people of South Africa are looking to this leadership to provide direction, to decisively respond to the challenges in our country, and to accelerate the radical economic and social transformation of our society. This NEC meeting has provided a firm foundation for the work that we have to do. Our task now is to build on the progress that we have made despite COVID-19 and despite restricted ability to be able to execute our tasks. We have demonstrated that we are an organization that is ready, willing to fulfill the expectations that our people have. I thank you.